The cabinet door creaked again as Thad opened it for the third time, hoping against hope that he'd somehow missed something. His thin fingers traced the back of the empty shelf, collecting only dust. At 9 years old, he wasn't tall enough to see inside without standing on his tiptoes, balancing precariously on the chipped laminate counter that had seen better days. "Thad," Wren's small voice came from behind him. "I'm hungry." He turned to face his 6-year-old sister, who stood in the kitchen doorway clutching her worn stuffed penguin. The evening light filtering through the grimy window cast long shadows across her unwashed hair. She hadn't complained when he couldn't get the hot water to work that morning. "I know, Wren. I'm looking," he said, his voice carrying a patience no child should have mastered. The kitchen clock read 6:43 p.m., its steady ticking a reminder of another day their mother hadn't come home. 3 days now, the longest stretch yet. The apartment had grown colder as the day wore on. Earlier, Thad had found the notice about the heating being cut off, crumpled behind the couch where their mother must have tossed it. He didn't understand all the words, but the big red final notice told him enough. Climbing down from the counter, he opened the refrigerator, though he already knew what he'd find. A half-empty bottle of ketchup, some expired milk, and a single wrinkled apple that had seen better days. The light inside flickered weakly, and Thad wondered how long before that bill would go unpaid, too. "Maybe we can share the apple," Wren suggested, her voice small but hopeful. She was always trying to help, even when there wasn't much help to give. Thad felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the one that came whenever she tried to make things easier for him. "No, you have it," he said, reaching for the fruit and wiping it on his sleeve before handing it to her. "I had those crackers from Mrs. Peterson at lunch, remember?" It was a lie, but a necessary one. He'd given those crackers to Wren hours ago. As Wren sat at their small kitchen table, carefully eating her apple in tiny bites to make it last longer, Thad's mind wandered to their mother, Autumn. He remembered when she used to paint, her hands covered in bright colors, her laugh filling their old apartment. Before they had to move to this one, before Nash, before the needles he sometimes found in the bathroom, before she started disappearing for days at a time with hollow promises of coming back with groceries and presents. The temperature dropped further as night fell. Thad had gathered all their blankets onto Wren's bed, creating a nest of sorts. Most of the blankets were thin, worn things, but there was one good one left, a thick blue fleece blanket that Dr. Thorne from next door had given them last Christmas. Thad had kept it hidden from their mother, afraid it would disappear like so many other things did when she needed money. "Time for bed, Wren," he announced, watching her carefully wrap her apple core in a paper towel. They'd both learned early that attracting roaches meant more problems than it was worth. "Can you tell me a story?" she asked, as he helped her into her warmest pajamas, the ones with only one small hole in the knee. Thad managed to smile, tucking her into the blanket nest. "Once there was a family of penguins who lived in the warmest part of Antarctica," he began, the familiar story flowing easily. He'd made it up months ago on another cold night when the heat was out. They had special magic in their feathers that kept them warm no matter how cold it got. He continued the story until Wren's breathing grew steady and deep. But sleep eluded him. The apartment had grown so cold he could see his breath in the dim light from the street lamp outside. Wren shivered in her sleep despite all the blankets. That's when he made his decision. Moving carefully to avoid waking her, Thad went to the closet where he'd hidden the blue blanket. It was still clean, unlike most things in their apartment. As he wrapped Wren in it, she stirred slightly, but didn't wake. With gentle determination, he lifted her into his arms, surprised as always by how light she felt. The hallway outside their apartment was dim, one of the fluorescent lights flickering erratically. Dr. Thorne's apartment was only 4 doors down, but it felt like miles. Thad had seen her just yesterday when she was coming home with her grocery bags. She'd smiled at them like she always did, sometimes giving them cookies, and she never asked questions when their mother wasn't around. Thad's heart pounded as he stood before her door, Wren's warm breath steady against his neck. The metal numbers for 4F stared back at him as he gathered his courage. They couldn't spend another night like this. He couldn't watch Ren shiver anymore. His knuckles rapped softly on the door, then harder when he realized how quiet the first knock had been. He heard movement inside, the soft padding of slippered feet approaching. As the lock clicked and the door began to open, Thad held his sister tighter and for the first time in a long while, allowed himself to cry. Dr. Riverthorn had seen many things in her 40 years as a child psychologist, but the sight before her doorway that winter evening would stay with her forever. Fuss Blackwood, a boy she'd watched grow increasingly gaunt over the past year, stood clutching his sister as if she might disappear. His tears carved clean tracks down his dirty cheeks. The heat had been turned off in their apartment. That was the first thing Thad managed to choke out, his voice cracking like dry wood under pressure. River felt her heart clench as she opened the door wider, letting the warmth of her cozy apartment spill into the cold hallway. She noticed how Thad instinctively leaned toward it, his body seeking relief like a wilted plant yearning for sunlight. "Come in, sweetheart," River said softly, careful not to startle him. "Let's get you both warm." Her apartment was everything their home wasn't: warm, clean, and meticulously organized. Books lined the walls on floor-to-ceiling shelves, their colorful spines creating a cheerful rainbow against the soft glow of lamplight. A kettle hummed gently on the stove, and the sweet scent of freshly baked ginger cookies lingered in the air. She'd been about to settle into her evening tea when the knock came. Thad stood just inside the doorway, uncertain and still clutching Ren close to his chest. The little girl stirred in his arms, her eyes fluttering open. "Dr. Thorne," Ren mumbled sleepily, recognizing their neighbor. "Your house smells pretty." "Thank you, dear," River replied, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions brewing within her. "Would you like to lie down on my couch? It's very comfortable." Thad hesitated before walking over to the plush brown couch. He laid Ren down with infinite care, adjusting the blue blanket around her small frame. River observed how his hands trembled slightly, how his gaze darted toward the door, as if expecting someone to burst in and snatch them away at any moment. "When did you last eat?" River asked, already moving toward her kitchen. "Yesterday. Maybe." Thad sounded unsure, but then added, "Ren had an apple tonight." River pulled bread, cheese, and ham from her refrigerator, assembling sandwiches while keeping an eye on Thad. He hovered by the couch, one hand resting protectively on Ren's shoulder, his body taut like a bowstring ready to snap. "Your mother hasn't been home?" River asked gently, though she already knew the answer. The walls in their building were thin, and she'd heard Autumn Blackwood screaming matches with Nash more times than she cared to count. 3 days, Thad whispered. "She left with Nash. Said they'd bring back groceries." His voice hardened slightly. "They never bring anything back except trouble." River placed a plate of sandwiches and a glass of milk on her coffee table. "Eat. You need your strength." As if given permission, Thad practically collapsed onto the food, though he still took care not to wake Ren. River watched him eat with the frantic speed of someone who didn't know when their next meal would come. She'd seen it before in her years as a doctor, but it never got easier to witness. While Thad ate, River made a decision. She picked up her phone and stepped into her study, leaving the door ajar so she could keep an eye on the children. Officer Juniper Kovac answered on the second ring. "Junie, it's River. I need you to come to my apartment. Yes, now. I have 2 children here." Her voice remained low as she explained the situation. When River returned to the living room, Thad had finished eating and was sitting on the floor beside the couch, his back pressed against it, one hand still touching Ren's blanket. His weary eyes followed River's every movement, brimming with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. "I called someone who can help," River said, settling into her armchair across from him. "Her name is Officer Kovac, and she specializes in helping children in difficult situations." Panic flashed across Thad's face. "Are they going to take us away? Separate us? Please, I can take care of Ren. I just needed help tonight because of the heat." "Breathe, Thad," River interrupted gently. "No one is going to separate you and Ren. I won't let that happen. But you need more help than just tonight's warmth and food, don't you?" The boy's lower lip quivered, and fresh tears welled in his eyes. "Mom tries sometimes," he whispered, glancing at his sleeping sister. when Nash isn't around. But then he comes back, and they both... He trailed off, unable to finish. It's not your job to be the parent, Thad. You're 9 years old. You should be playing, learning, being a child. Someone has to take care of Ren. A knock at the door made them both jump. River rose slowly, maintaining eye contact with Thad. That's Officer Kovac. She's going to help us figure this out, okay? You're very brave for coming to me tonight, and I promise you, things are going to get better. As River opened the door to reveal Officer Kovac's kind face, she saw Thad draw himself up straighter, squaring his thin shoulders. He looked both younger and older than his 9 years, a child forced to grow up too fast, finally asking for help the only way he knew how. The night stretched ahead of them, full of gentle questions and difficult answers. But for now, in River Thorne's warm apartment, 2 children were safe. And sometimes, River knew from experience, that was enough of a start. Phoenix Walsh's office at Child Protective Services was drowning in case files related to the Blackwood children. She'd been working for 16 hours straight, piecing together a narrative of neglect that stretched back far longer than anyone had noticed. Or perhaps chosen to notice. Morning light filtered through dusty blinds as Phoenix spread another set of school records across her desk. Fuss Blackwood's attendance record told its own tragic story. Sporadic absences, late arrivals, notes about falling asleep in class. His academic performance had plummeted over the past year, yet his teachers noted his fierce intelligence whenever he was present and alert, managing to maintain a B average despite everything. God knows how he managed that, Phoenix muttered, running her finger down his grade sheet. A knock on her doorframe made her look up. Officer Juniper Kovac stood there, dark circles under her eyes mirroring Phoenix's own exhaustion. Got something, Juniper said, dropping a thick folder onto the desk. Medical records. Both kids haven't had... It had been over 2 years since Ren's last routine checkup, but the ER visits told a different story. Phoenix paused, her jaw tightening as she read the file aloud. Ren was treated for malnutrition 3 months ago. The mother had claimed temporary financial difficulties at the time. Scanning further, Phoenix noted that Dr. Marcus from Portland General had flagged the case for follow-up, but Autumn never brought Ren back for the scheduled appointment. The phone on Phoenix's desk buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. Dr. River Thorne's voice came through the speaker. The school counselor at Riverside Elementary just sent over her notes. You'll want to see these. 20 minutes later, they were all gathered in Phoenix's office, staring at a child's drawing that spoke volumes. The counselor had kept it from a session with Ren 3 weeks prior. 2 stick figures, one small, one smaller, huddled together in what appeared to be a dark room. No parents in sight. Classic depiction of abandonment, Dr. Thorne said softly, her psychology background evident in her analysis. The darkness around them, the way they're clinging together. Ren was trying to tell us something. Phoenix pulled up another document on her computer. I found Curtis Blackwood, their father. He's in Seattle, remarried, has 2 kids with his new wife. Hasn't paid a cent of child support in 5 years. Bastard, Juniper muttered under her breath. There's more, Phoenix continued, scrolling through the records. Autumn's history shows a pattern. Before Nash, there were 2 other boyfriends, both with drug-related arrests. The last one, Tyler Marsh, was arrested for dealing meth out of the apartment while the kids were there. Dr. Thorne leaned forward, adjusting her glasses. How are they doing this morning? Still sleeping when I left, Juniper replied. Your spare room is probably the first proper bed they've had in months. The social worker is coming at noon to do the home inspection of their apartment. Phoenix opened another file on her screen. We need to locate Autumn. Last known whereabouts? Juniper asked. Working on it, Juniper replied. Nash Reeves has a cousin who owns a motel on the east side. We're checking there first. The morning wore on as they pieced together the puzzle. Each new document added another layer to the grim narrative. Unpaid bills, eviction notices from previous apartments, complaints from neighbors about strange comings and goings at all hours. The paper trail painted a devastating picture of two children failed by every adult meant to protect them. At 11:30, Phoenix's phone rang. It was the social worker, early for the home inspection. M. Walsh's voice was tense. "You need to see this. The apartment. It's worse than we expected." 30 minutes later, Phoenix stood inside the Blackwood apartment. The smell of neglect hit her like a physical force. The kitchen cabinets were nearly empty, save for a few cans of expired food. The bathroom showed signs of drug use, burnt spoons and needle caps hidden behind the toilet. But it was the children's room that broke her heart. A single mattress lay on the floor, its blankets carefully arranged, most thin and worn. A backpack in the corner contained neatly folded clothes, a few school books, and a small stash of crackers. Next to it sat a teddy bear missing an eye, positioned protectively in front of a child's piggy bank. "Emergency supplies," Juniper murmured, stepping into the room after Phoenix. "Look how organized it is." He was trying so hard to create some stability. Phoenix knelt by the mattress, noting how the blankets were arranged to form a barrier against the wall, likely to keep out the cold. Taped to the wall was another of Wren's drawings, penguins huddled together, seeking warmth and safety. "The doctor's report just came in," Juniper said, checking her phone. "Both kids are underweight. Wren has a vitamin D deficiency, and Thad shows signs of stress-induced insomnia. But here's the thing, no signs of physical abuse. They were neglected, but not beaten." "Small mercies, I suppose," Phoenix replied, standing. Her decision crystallized. "We need to find Autumn today. These kids can't come back here." She paused, glancing around the room once more. "Dr. Thorne has already offered to be their emergency foster placement. She's qualified, she knows them, and they trust her. Let's make that happen." As they left the apartment, Phoenix noticed something that made her throat tighten. A calendar on the kitchen wall marked with a child's careful handwriting. Every few days, a small star was drawn alongside notes like, "Mom smiled today," or "Mom made breakfast." Thad had been documenting his mother's good days, clinging to hope like a lifeline. Phoenix Walsh had seen countless cases in her career, but those stars, drawn with such patient optimism, would haunt her for years to come. The day stretched ahead, filled with paperwork and court filings, but one thing was clear. The Blackwood children's paper trail of neglect was about to end. Their next chapter was beginning, and Phoenix was determined to make it a better one. They found Autumn Blackwood and Nash Reeves exactly where Juniper suspected, at the Starlight Motel. The scene that greeted them was grimly predictable. A room thick with cigarette smoke, empty bottles scattered across stained carpet, and the sharp, acrid smell of something far more sinister lingering in the air. Autumn sat on the edge of the bed, her once beautiful face hollow and aged beyond her 32 years. Her dark hair, which Wren had inherited, hung in greasy strands around her face. When Officer Kovac entered the room, Autumn barely registered her presence. Her dilated pupils struggled to focus. "Where are my kids?" she slurred, attempting to stand but swaying slightly. Nash lounged against the wall, his tall frame tense despite his affected casualness. At 37, he looked closer to 50, his face weathered by years of hard living. His eyes darted between the officers and the bathroom, where Phoenix suspected more evidence awaited discovery. Phoenix stepped forward, her expression resolute. This wasn't just a case anymore. It was a chance to rewrite the future for two children who deserved so much more. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of Phoenix's computer as she scanned through Wren Blackwood's file. Her jaw tightened when she reached the section detailing the ER visits, 3 in the past 2 years, each more alarming than the last. The most recent one stood out: malnutrition. 3 months ago, Wren had been treated at Portland General, and Dr. Marcus himself had flagged it for follow-up. But Autumn, their mother, never brought Wren back for the scheduled appointment. Phoenix paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Who was the attending physician? She murmured to herself before finding the name. Dr. Marcus, at Portland General. Her phone buzzed, breaking the quiet tension. Dr. River Thorne's voice came through the speaker. The school counselor at Riverside Elementary just sent over her notes. You'll want to see these. 20 minutes later, They were all gathered in Phoenix's office, staring at a child's drawing that spoke volumes. The counselor had kept it from a session with Ren 3 weeks prior. Two stick figures, one small, one smaller, huddled together in what appeared to be a dark, empty room. No parents in sight. Classic depiction of abandonment, Dr. Thorne said softly, her psychology background evident in her analysis. The darkness around them, the way they're clinging to each other. Ren was trying to tell us something. Phoenix pulled up another document on her screen. I found Curtis Blackwood, their father. He's in Seattle, remarried, with 2 kids by his new wife. Hasn't paid a cent of child support in 5 years. Bastard, Juniper muttered under her breath. There's more, Phoenix continued, scrolling through the records. Autumn's history shows a pattern. Before Nash Reeves, there were 2 other boyfriends, all with drug-related arrests. The last one, Tyler Marsh, was arrested for dealing meth out of the apartment while the kids were there. Dr. Thorne leaned forward, adjusting her glasses. How are they doing this morning? Still sleeping when I left, Juniper replied. Your spare room is probably the first proper bed they've had in months. The social worker's coming at noon to inspect the apartment. Phoenix opened another file. We need to locate Autumn. Last known whereabouts? Working on it, Juniper said. Nash Reeves has a cousin who owns a motel on the east side. We're checking there first. As the morning wore on, the team pieced together the grim puzzle. Unpaid bills, eviction notices from previous apartments, complaints from neighbors about strange comings and goings at all hours. It painted a devastating picture of 2 children failed by every adult meant to protect them. At 11 o'clock, Phoenix's phone rang. It was M. Walsh, the social worker, calling early for the home inspection. Her voice was tense. You need to see this. The apartment. It's worse than we expected. 30 minutes later, Phoenix stood inside the Blackwoods' apartment. The smell of neglect hit her like a physical force. The kitchen cabinets were nearly bare, save for a few cans of expired food. In the bathroom, signs of drug use were everywhere. Burnt spoons, needle caps hidden behind the toilet. But it was the children's room that broke her heart. A single mattress lay on the floor, its thin blankets carefully arranged. A backpack in the corner contained neatly folded clothes, a few school books, and a stash of crackers. Next to it sat a teddy bear missing an eye, placed protectively in front of a child's piggy bank. Emergency supplies, Juniper whispered, following Phoenix into the room. Look how organized it is. They were trying so hard to create some stability. Phoenix knelt by the mattress, noticing how the blankets were arranged to form a barrier against the wall, likely to keep out the cold. On the wall above, taped carefully, was another of Ren's drawings. This time, penguins huddled together, seeking warmth and safety. The doctor's report just came in, Juniper said, checking her phone. Both kids are underweight. Ren has a vitamin D deficiency, and Thad shows signs of stress-induced insomnia. But here's the thing. No signs of physical abuse. Neglected, yes. Beaten, no. Small mercies, I suppose, Phoenix said quietly, standing. Her decision crystallized. We need to find Autumn today. These kids can't come back here. She glanced around the room one last time. Dr. Thorne has already offered to be their emergency foster placement. She's qualified, knows them, and they trust her. Let's make that happen. As they prepared to leave, Phoenix caught sight of something that made her throat tighten. A calendar on the kitchen wall marked with a child's careful handwriting. Every few days, a small star was drawn alongside notes like, Mom smiled today, or Mom made breakfast. Thad had been documenting his mother's good days, clinging to hope like a lifeline. Phoenix Walsh had seen many cases in her career, but those stars, drawn with such patient optimism, would haunt her for years to come. The day stretched ahead, filled with paperwork and court filings, but one thing was clear. The Blackwood children's paper trail of neglect was about to end. Their next chapter was beginning, and Phoenix was determined to make it a better one. They found Autumn Blackwood and Nash Reeves exactly where Juniper suspected, at the Starlight Motel. The scene that greeted them was grimly predictable. A room thick with cigarette smoke, empty bottles scattered across stained carpet, and the sharp tang of something far more sinister lingering in the air. Autumn sat on the edge of the bed, her once beautiful face hollow and aged beyond her 32 years. Her dark hair, which Wren had inherited, hung in greasy strands around her face. When Officer Kovac entered the room, Autumn barely registered their presence. Her dilated pupils struggled to focus as she slurred, "Where are my kids?" Attempting to stand, she swayed slightly. Nash lounged against the wall, his tall frame tense despite his affected casualness. At 37, he looked closer to 50, his face weathered by years of hard living. His eyes darted between the officers and the bathroom, where Phoenix suspected. The pieces fell into place. This wasn't just neglect. It was survival in its darkest form. And now, finally, someone was stepping in to change the story. For Wren, for Thad, and for whatever fragile hope still clung to them. Evidence was hastily disposed of before they opened the door. "Your children are safe," Juniper said firmly, positioning herself between Nash and Autumn, "which is more than I can say for their situation at home. No heat, no food, no supervision." "Want to explain that, Autumn?" "We were coming back," Nash interjected, his voice carrying a desperate edge. "Just needed to handle some business. First, kids are fine. They know how to take care of themselves." Phoenix stepped forward, her caseworker badge catching the dim light. "They're 9 and 6, Mr. Reeves. They shouldn't have to know how to take care of themselves." Autumn's face crumpled, a moment of clarity breaking through her drug-induced haze fad. "He takes such good care of Wren. He's such a good boy." Tears began to roll down her cheeks, cutting trails through her smeared makeup. "He's a child," Autumn, Phoenix said softer now. "Your child. And right now he's doing your job." Nash moved, suddenly reaching for Autumn's arm. "We don't have to listen to this. They can't, actually. We can," Juniper interrupted, stepping between them. "Jam. We're here to inform you that your children have been placed in emergency foster care. You'll need to appear before a family court judge to discuss their custody situation." The news seemed to hit Autumn like a physical blow. She staggered, sitting heavily on the bed. "You took my babies. They took themselves." Phoenix corrected Thad, carried Wren to a neighbor's door because they were freezing and hungry. "Would you like to know what we found in your apartment? Would you like to see the pictures?" Nash's facade of indifference cracked. Those kids are fine. Autumn's a good mother when what?" Juniper challenged. "When she's not with you. When she's not chasing the next high. When she actually comes home." Autumn began to rock back and forth, her thin arms wrapped around herself. "I love my children," she whispered. "I love them so much. Love isn't enough," Phoenix said, pulling out her card. "But it can be a start. There's a bed waiting for you. You at Portland Recovery Center right now today. You can choose your children, Autumn. You can choose to fight for them." Nash laughed, a harsh sound. "Recovery Center. You think that's the answer? Autumn, baby, don't listen to them. We'll figure this out. Get the kids back." "Mr. Reeves," Juniper cut in. "You need to step back. This isn't your decision." The next few minutes dissolved into chaos. Nash, realizing he was losing control of the situation, began shouting. Autumn, overwhelmed and coming down from whatever she'd taken, started sobbing hysterically. It took 3 officers to restrain Nash when he tried to prevent Autumn from listening to Phoenix's explanation of the recovery program. In the end, Autumn sat in the back of Phoenix's car, staring out the window as they drove away from the Starlight Motel. Nash's angry shouts faded behind them, along with the last vestiges of the life she'd been living. "They must hate me," she whispered. "Watching the city blur past, my babies must hate me." Phoenix glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "They love you. That's what makes this so hard for them. Dad still marks your good days on the calendar. Did you know that? He puts little stars on the days when you smile, when you make breakfast, when you're really there." A sound escaped Autumn that was half SOB, half laugh. "Stars he always loved. Loved stars when he was little, before Wren. Before everything went wrong. We used to lie in the park and find constellations. You can find them again," Phoenix said quietly. "But first you have to find yourself." As they pulled up to the recovery center, Autumn's hand trembled on the door handle. "What if I can't do it? What if I fail them again?" "Then you'll get up and try again," Phoenix replied. "But right now your children are safe, warm, and cared for. They're giving you a chance to heal. The question is, Will you take it? Autumn stepped out of the car, her legs unsteady, but her back straightening as she looked at the building before her. Behind them, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange somewhere across the city. In Dr. Thorne's apartment, two children were having dinner at a real table in a warm room with clean plates and full glasses. And here in front of the recovery center, their mother took her first step toward finding her way back to them. Dr. River Thorne's apartment transformed over the next few days, childhood slowly seeping into its dignified spaces. Wren's drawings appeared on the refrigerator held by alphabet magnets. Thad's carefully organized school books found a home on the lower shelf of River's massive bookcase. Small changes that spoke volumes about growing comfort and trust. The morning light filtered through the kitchen window as River prepared breakfast, watching Thad help Wren button her coat. It was their 4th day of their temporary placement, and the first time Thad had allowed River to make breakfast without hovering anxiously in the kitchen. "Remember to eat your lunch today, Thad?" reminded his sister, checking her backpack for the 3rd time. "All of it okay?" "I will," Wren promised, fiddling with her newly brushed hair. River had bought her hair ties with little butterflies on them, and she hadn't stopped touching them since. "She'll be fine." "Fattiest," R said gently, placing plates of scrambled eggs and toast on the table. "You don't have to worry so much anymore." Dad's hands stilled on Wren's backpack. I know, it's just..." He trailed off, his young face creasing with familiar worry lines. "It's just that you've been taking care of her for so long," River finished. It's hard to stop. The children sat at the table, Wren immediately diving into her eggs, while Thad picked at his toast. River noticed how Thad still kept a vigilant eye on Wren during breakfast, ensuring she ate first. His shoulders remained tense until his sister had cleaned her plate, a silent testament to the weight he carried as her protector. "Dr. Thorne," Wren piped up, her mouth full of toast. "Can I take an extra apple for lunch, in case Thad forgets to eat his again?" River's heart clenched at the role reversal, the younger sister trying to care for her caretaker. "Of course, dear. And maybe Thad can promise to eat his own lunch today." She caught the boy's eye, her gaze gentle but firm. Thad flushed, looking down at his barely touched breakfast. "I'll try." After breakfast, River walked them to school, a new routine that still felt fragile and precious. Wren skipped ahead, pointing out dogs and birds with childlike wonder, while Thad stayed close to River, his steps measured and watchful. "Your mother's first supervised visit is scheduled for this afternoon," River said carefully, gauging Thad's reaction. "After school, Phoenix will be there, and I'll be in the next room if you need me." Thad's pace slowed. Is she okay?" "She's been at the recovery center for 3 days now. Phoenix says she's doing the work, taking it seriously. Nash, he's not allowed near the center or near you and Wren." They walked in silence for a moment, watching Wren chase a falling leaf. Finally, Thad spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes I miss her so much it hurts. The real her, I mean. From before." River resisted the urge to hug him, knowing he wasn't ready for that yet. "That's perfectly normal, Thad. You can miss her and be angry at her at the same time. All your feelings are valid." At the school gates, Wren impulsively hugged River before running off to join her friends. The sight of her playing freely, without constant worry, made Thad's eyes water. "She's happy," he said, sounding almost surprised. "You both deserve to be happy," River replied softly. "Now go on. You'll be late for class." The day passed slowly for River, filled with preparations for the supervised visit. She arranged her living room carefully, removing anything breakable and setting out water and tissues. Phoenix arrived early to brief her. "Autumn's been in withdrawal," Phoenix explained quietly. "It's been rough, but she's pushing through. She knows this visit is contingent on her staying clean." When the children arrived home from school at their usual time, Wren was chattering excitedly about art class, but Thad had grown quiet again. His anxiety was visible in every movement as he helped his sister with her coat. When Autumn arrived, the change in her was already noticeable. 3 days sober had brought some clarity back to her eyes, though her hands shook slightly as she sat on River's couch. when Ren ran to her with a cry of, "Mommy!" Autumn's composed facade cracked. "My baby," she whispered, holding Ren close. "My precious baby." Thad stood back, his small frame rigid. River watched as Autumn looked up at her son, tears streaming down her face. "Thad," she said softly, "my brave, wonderful boy. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." What happened next would stay with River forever. Thad took one step forward, then another, his face a battlefield of emotion. When he finally let his mother hold him, his sobs were those of a child, not the miniature adult he'd been forced to become. The visit lasted an hour. They talked, cried, shared awkward moments of silence. Autumn listened as Ren showed her the butterfly hair ties, and as Thad hesitantly mentioned his science project. Small steps toward healing, witnessed by the afternoon sun streaming through River's windows. After Autumn left, escorted by Phoenix back to the recovery center, River found Thad sitting in the window seat, watching the street below. "You did very well today," River said, sitting beside him. "She looks different," Thad observed. "Her eyes, they're clearer." "Recovery is a journey," River explained. "There will be good days and hard days, but you and Ren are safe now, no matter what happens." From the other room, they heard Ren humming as she drew another picture for the refrigerator. The sound of normalcy, of childhood restored, filled the apartment like warm light. "Can I put a star on the calendar for today?" Thad asked suddenly. River smiled, her heart full. "Of course you can, Thad. Of course you can." The call came at 2:47 a.m., shattering the quiet of River's apartment. Phoenix's voice was tight with urgency. "Autumn overdosed. She's at Portland General. Nash smuggled something into the center." River glanced toward the children's room, where Thad and Ren slept peacefully for the first time in days. "How bad is it?" "They're working on her now. I'm heading to the hospital. The kids are safe with you." "Keep me posted," River said before hanging up. Afterward, she sat in her darkened living room, the city lights casting long shadows through the windows. She knew that somewhere across town, in a stark hospital room, Autumn Blackwood was fighting for her life. The same Autumn who just hours ago had sat on this very couch, showing tentative signs of progress. The memory of the afternoon visit now seemed fragile, like a soap bubble about to burst. Autumn had brought small gifts for each child, hair clips for Ren, a notebook for Thad. She'd been shaky, but present, her eyes clear and focused as she listened to Ren's stories about school. A soft sound drew River's attention. Thad stood in the hallway, his thin frame silhouetted against the darkness. "Something's wrong," he said. Not a question. "I heard the phone." River patted the space beside her on the couch. "Come sit." He moved like an old man, each step heavy with anticipation of bad news. When he sat, River noticed how his hands clutched the hem of his pajama shirt, the same nervous gesture she'd seen Autumn make hours she took them. Thad's breath hitched, but he didn't cry. Is she going to die? The doctors are helping her right now. Phoenix is there? She promised. His voice cracked today. She promised she was trying. She was trying. Fuss addiction. It's like a monster that lies to you. It makes you break promises even when you want to keep them. They sat in silence for a moment, the distant sound of sirens floating up from the street below. Finally, Thad spoke again, his voice small. "What happens if she dies?" The question hung in the air like smoke. River chose her words carefully. "Then you and Ren will still be safe. You'll still have a home and people who care about you, but let's not think about that yet. Your mother is fighting. She never fought before." Thad whispered. "Not really. Not even when Dad left. Sometimes people have to hit rock bottom before they can start climbing up what's rock bottom. It's when things get so bad that you finally realize you have to change sometimes." River paused, considering her next words. Sometimes it takes almost losing everything to understand what really matters. The night crept on. River made hot chocolate and they sat together waiting for news. Thad didn't cry, but his hand found its way into River's, holding on tight at 4:23 a.m. Phoenix called again. Again. "She's stable." They got to her in time. Nash has been arrested. He'll face charges for smuggling drugs into the facility. When River relayed the news, Thad's grip on her hand loosened slightly. Can we see her tomorrow?